Hello, this is my broken Citroen C6 and this is my rolling road. Yes, let's put them together. In fact, this is my 2007 Citroen C6, although you'll have to ignore. There's other videos that explain it. I'm not going to go into it again. But basically, yes, this is my Citroen C6. It's poorly. It's been off the road a long time. I've had it, what, 3.5 years now? And I'm quite fond of it. It doesn't look like I'm fond of it, admittedly, looking at the state of it. So, long story short, I bought this car for £750 in lockdown. Remember lockdowns? That was back in 2020, September 2020, I think. Now, £750 is the going rate for a Citroen C6 these days, it seems, but back then it wasn't. Back then, that was a cheap Citroen C6 because it's broken, which I've already mentioned. But how is it broken? Well, there are a number of ways this car is faulty, but to be fair, not many. So basically, as far as the dyno goes, there's actually only two faults. I did a video the other day with a launch 123 something or other OBD reader, which found some fault codes with this car, cleared them, and made the engine management light go away, because until then it had been there and the car had been in limp mode quite a lot and I wasn't very happy about it. But that wasn't the main issue. The main issue is not something that an OBD machine can fix. It's the gearbox. The gearbox is broken. There's that word again. It's broken. Now, for a number of reasons, this presents me with an opportunity. The first thing I want to do is see how fixed the car is. Well, what I mean is the OBD that I plugged into it and cleared the codes and made the light go away and restored full throttle. Well, has that actually worked? I don't know, because the car isn't taxed. So I can't drive it on the road. Legally. Definitely not to a petrol station. And yes, so I need to know whether it's made a difference there. And that means giving it some berries, and I certainly can't do that legally. The other thing that I want to try and test with this is actually the fact that it's a broken car might work to my benefit, because without going into massive detail, as I undoubtedly will in a minute, the rolling road works by you bring the car up to a certain speed, and then that's its start speed, and then when it knows you're at that speed, the brake on the end here starts to bite, the electric eddy current brake, electromagnetic brake. Basically two hoofing great brake discs. And when I say hoofing, I mean they've got to be off a train. Honestly, they're massive. You bring the car up to speed in your selected gear, which is 9 times out of 10 it's 4th gear, and then you accelerate, and the dyno tries to brake against it, and you get right to the very top. And then when you're at the very top, you dip the clutch, take your foot off the throttle, and you let it coast down. That's why I see dynos coast down afterwards. Now, on a manual car, that's fine. You just rev it up, dip the clutch, let it come down, job done. This is an auto, a slush box. And that presents you with a problem for a number of reasons. Firstly, when you put your foot down, some gearboxes will insist on changing down gears, which means you can only really get a reading between the points the gearbox doesn't want to change down. So in this instance, it would probably change down at like 2,000, well, anything under 1,500 revs. If you put your foot down halfway, it will drop a cog. Well, that's no good, because the graph will then end up like the Himalayas. It'll be all over the place. So you need one gear all the way up. Ideally, to measure the torque from like low revs up to the top, all the way through, get a nice good graph, you need one gear. And you don't need to slip your clutch. Because if you have a torque converter on an automatic gearbox, that's effectively what it's doing. It's like slipping a clutch. It's not actually that, but that's effectively what it's like. It's just choosing when and where to do it. And that is a problem, because when you put your foot down again, your graph will not be accurate of what the engine's putting out. It's doing what the torque converter is doing. So it's only on automatic cars, you probably only get a reading, I don't know, north of 3,500 revs, 4,000 on a petrol, maybe 2,500, 3,000 on a diesel. That's any good. And when a diesel only revs to 4,500 revs, that means I've got a graph that's about 1,500 RPM usable. Only I haven't, because on an automatic car, I can't dip the clutch and let it freewheel down again. So I can't even do that. So as a result, automatic gearbox outputs on rolling road dynos generally, I mean, on very modern cars, they might be okay. They can probably measure themselves, but on an older car, and this is an older car, I know not to me or you, perhaps if you're a frequenter of this channel, but yeah, this is considered by most people an old car. Yeah, you can't. It's like, it basically needs to be able to do the rundown to get the power loss figure from the coasting to add to the wheel figure that it will produce. So yeah, it's not really conducive, is the word, to, I think it is, to a rolling road dyno. Unless this car is broken. How does that help, you might ask? Well, there are two reasons why this helps. Firstly, the torque converter in this car is bollocks. Pretty sure it is. It locks up, it doesn't slip. It makes driving it quite difficult. Well, when you're manoeuvring anyway. If you're out on a motorway, it's fine, but yeah, it means it's very, very sluggish to pull away because there's no slip. It's basically like trying to pull away normally in second gear, because it very rarely drops back into first. As you can imagine, it's quite laboured. If it had a torque converter working, it would be fine, because it would just allow it to slip, use the torque of the engine to pick the gearbox up, and whew, off you go. But it doesn't, because the torque converter is locked, which is a bad thing. But not if you're putting it on a rolling road. Because if you're putting it on a rolling road, I can use the manual Tiptronic lever, if you like, the manual selection lever, to select fourth gear, and between the speeds of 30 and up to however many miles an hour it will go, it will stay in fourth gear, it won't come out of it. I can bang my foot down at 30 miles an hour, it will stay in fourth. That's good. And also, because the gearbox is knackered, I mean the torque converter is, gearbox I think it is, I don't know. But I've got another gearbox anyway, and even if I could be asked to fix this car, I don't know if I will or won't, but I've got a spare gearbox. I can take a few liberties with this one. So that means I can go to the top of fourth gear and knock it into neutral at 100 and whatever miles an hour it's doing, and see if it gives us a reading. Now, an automatic gearbox can't give you a brilliant figure on a rolling road like this anyway. You just can't. There are too many variables. But of all the automatic gearboxes that could go on this dyno right now, this one is probably the one to give us the best shot of a realistic output figure. So hopefully that gives you some background as to what a dyno does, how it works, and why I've put this on here. All that remains is to try it. And to be fair, I know I said about this board, and I keep saying I'm not going to do this board anymore, but in theory this should win that easily. It should just smash everything there. Right, you'll have to excuse me if I'm dirty. That is the hardest car I've ever strapped onto the dyno. It is a nightmare to get under there and get the straps up and over the wishbones and things without bending all the suspension brackets. And yeah, so that's fun. Now, one of the issues I've noticed is the tyre looks a little bit flat. I can't remember what these are supposed to be, but I'm pretty sure it's 38 PSI, something like that. 23. So I'm going to have to sort that before I do anything. But the problem is, the airline is plugged into the dyno. And I haven't got a... So I don't know what I'm going to do here. Hold that thought. I got sent something. I wasn't planning to do this, and I just remembered I've been sent this. It looks like a phone, admittedly, in that box, but it's not. Apparently this is a smart electric pump by Auxito. Now, that's a brand I'm aware of because this car has Auxito LEDs in it and has done for many years. I forgot I had this to the point it's still wrapped up. But I can pump the tyre up without disconnecting the dyno, which would be good. I hope it's charged up enough to use. Remember those days when you had to fully charge a phone before you used it? So this is an Auxito smart electric pump, an A301. It charges via USB-C. And the max inflation pressure is 150 PSI. It's got a lovely box, I'll give it that. It looks like a phone. And that looks like the condom case that you... Right. Manual. What am I? Male or female? I'm male, aren't I? Right. Let's have a butcher's. I mean, look, when you consider what tyre inflator pumps used to be like, massive, great big heavy things, how can that do that? Seriously. Right, well, it hasn't done it yet, has it? Oh, it's got a little bag. So that goes in like bayonet fitting. Maybe I should take this off. That's probably an air vent, isn't it? This is probably not the level of advert they were hoping for. It's on. It's on. It's fully charged. No. the battery's red. What does that mean? Need the instructions. Pretty sure the C6 is supposed to be 38 psi. Oh, it's in bar. Well, it depends on the load. If it's not got many things in it, 2.4, 2.6 if it does. Alright, let's... How do you change it to bar? Oh wow, look, it can do bicycles, bicycle mode. What's that? Oh, motorbike, bicycle. Football? Okay, this is actually quite useful. It's got a light. And a warning light. It's doing SOS! Okay, this is actually very cool. I quite like this. Right. I don't know how to change it to bar. Well, 2.5 bar is just over 36 psi. So let's go for 36. I don't need you. Compressor's kicked in. Don't need you, mate. Right, so I've plugged it in. 23.5 psi is what it's got in there, so that doesn't lie. Go. Oh, there you go. I mean, that's a big wheel. That's not going up. Is that meant to go up? Or is it just going to get to the end and go, done? See if the other side needs doing. Oh. That's got it to 25 psi. Okay, I've got the instructions back. Some dickhead threw them over there. Oh, the battery's low. This has gone well. I mean, it's almost like I'm not prepared, isn't it? So the red means that it's... Oh, well, it really is dead now. Okay, I might have to disconnect the dyno. Okay, so if you've got a Citroen C6 with flat tyres on a rolling road strapped down, and you need to charge it up, that might not be the thing to use, but for the size of that, carry that in the car, wouldn't you? What a useful little piece of kit. Little SOS thing, I like that. Thank you, Auxito, or Auxito, or whatever you are. A lot of firsts with this dyno run. It's the first car where the overhang of the nose is so big, I can't fit the front fan wheel over the cradle to stop it pissing off across the workshop, so hopefully it won't. It's also the first twin turbo engine that's ever gone on here. Yeah, for those who are watching this and going like, well, can you just get on with it? Well, this is not how these videos go. We muck about, we talk, we socialise, we get on with each other. And we have a little sort of chin wag. This becomes an event. So it's time for your input. What do you think the C6 is going to do? Is it going to give us some sort of reasonable numbers? Is it all going to be a load of rubbish? The book figures on this car, 204 horsepower at 4,000 revs and 325 pound-foot of torque at the flywheel, this is, between, oh God, 1,900 and 3,000? I can't remember, but I'll put it on the screen here, so it blocks out Hilda. Yeah, what do you reckon? 165,000 miles on this thing. It's not in a good way. And we haven't even tried running it up yet. This thing is going to have a duck fit. As soon as those rollers start turning, those front wheels are spinning and the back ones are still, it is not going to be happy. It's going to light up like a Christmas tree. It may not even let us do it at all. I'm intrigued to see whether the spoiler pops up or not. The suspension will probably lower. Which has just given me a good idea for some footage, some B-roll. Right, so I'm going to go for something slightly irregular. I'm going to sync the dyno on video here, because I'm actually, it's nothing to do with the syncing, that bit's not interesting. I'm intrigued to know what happens. I think this is going to throw a duck fit, so we'll see if it works. This will be the first inkling we're going to get, whether this thing's going to play ball or not. This is such a stupid idea, isn't it? Right, so I've got to turn ESP off, which I have, and the parking sensors off, and the lane departure warning system off. Have I got a buckled wheel? That's third gear. That's fourth. Yeah, lit up like a Christmas tree, and there it is. It's also wobbling around a bit on here. Problem I've got is the suspension keeps changing heights. So the straps are like 1 minute they're too tight, the next minute they're not tight enough. Right, that's taken quite a long time to sync. I do have some issues. When I try and put it in fourth gear, if I go below 25 miles an hour, it will change into third. I can't stop it. But that's when it starts to record the dyno. If I change the speed, it means it won't overlay with any of the other graphs that we've done. So I'm going to try and do this, and hopefully it works. But this might not work, I don't know. It might blow up, I don't know. Let's try it. Screw it, let's go. Something is not reading right there. I think it's because I'm changing gear when it's trying to do something. Oh no, it's come out alright. Oh, no it hasn't. 140. That seems unlikely. But you never know. Peak at 4,000. Yeah, the torque's dying off. It's not supposed to do that. It just suddenly launched forward and went off on one, and then, I mean, the power losses are low. I mean, on a front wheel drive manual car with that kind of power, I would expect them more like 20 horsepower, maybe 22, but it's immaterial really. But I think 140 seems unlikely. I don't know, maybe, did it change gear? Maybe it changed into fifth. I need to keep an eye on that. I'll try another run. Yeah, right. I think I've figured out a problem here. It is the start speed. It's out of sync. 170. Yeah. I'm gonna have to start the run at a different speed to the other cars. I just can't get it into fourth gear and get it biting at the right point. So when I slam my foot down, the dyno's not expecting it. Well, that's a bit more like it. Let's save that one. Did you notice the suspension going up and down when it was going up through the speeds there? Have another look. I can't feel it inside, but apparently the car should lower at 40 miles an hour and then lower again at about 75, 80. So yeah, see if it sinks. Now I've done a start speed here at 35. Did it go up and down? Did you see it? Because I sure as hell couldn't feel it. Felt much better. but not more powerful. No! No, it felt good. Look at the graph. That's pretty decent. Oh no. He's way down on power. 172.4. This could well be 100 RPM out, so that's about right. Oh no, it's losing big time. Oh man, that's gutting. It's actually recording roughly about right, like slamming it back into neutral. I mean, it was about to hit 5th gear here. That might be why it flattened out a bit. Can't think why it would limit itself, so it's... I mean, it could, but... No, why would it limit itself in 4th gear? That's a working gear. Oh, man, I'm disappointed. It's barely more powerful than the BX. I mean, it would win the board, if the board was still a thing, but that board is currently out of use. But, oh dear, that's more... That's worse than... minus 13. That's like minus 32. Oh Christ. Let's have some C6 exhaust noise. I can't promise it'll be good, but you never know. No better. Dang, 172 again. But I have my excuses book ready, because something's just happened in there. Look, I've got the old launch back out. Shut up. But I tell you what, putting it back in neutral while you're going down the road, like when the wheels are doing 90 odd mile an hour, 94 they were topping out at on here. That's pretty scary, because if you hit reverse by accident, shatter, shatter, clank, clank. Right, I'm bloody freezing. Now, look what's back. These ones are all here now. But the EML has come back, so I did some research. I did some scanning with the launch. Get ready for the launch. And look what I found. Look what I found. I'm going to have to take you out the tripod here. Why did I bring the tripod into the car? Idiot. Right. Look what I found. Can you see the yellow line there? So the calculated load value is the blue. Black is fuel rail pressure. Intake air temperature. This is interesting actually. It's got quite hot now, but if I bring the revs up, starts to come down. That's good, isn't it? That's what it's meant to do. Bit of air flowing through the intake and the intercooler and everything. But the thing that I want you to take note of is intake. You can't, because it's not bloody focusing. Intake manifold absolute pressure 15.225 psi. So I'm guessing that's boost pressure basically. Well, if I rev it, it isn't changing at all. Nothing is changing. It's just staying rock steady at 15 point whatever that is. Sorry if that's giving you all a headache. That is some high fuel pressure. So yeah, I think that could be my fault. So I scanned it again, and I have got a fault for manifold, absolute manifold pressure, and turbo under boost or over boost, but it could be that because it's not reading properly. I mean, it blatantly is boosting because it is still doing something on the rolling road, even if it's 30 horsepower short of what it's meant to. It's still doing something, but the sensor in the intake manifold, the boost sensor, is just showing a flat figure the whole time, which is not right. So if I switch it off, but when it comes back on, that light will stay on and it will say engine fault on that screen. Well, it's going to say an everything fault at the moment. It's not happy. There you go, engine fault, repair needed. Where's the map sensor on one of these? Right, oh dear, look at that. I mean, the only other possibility is I did re-pipe those, well, pipes on the top there. And, yeah, I did re-plumb those. Oh, it's lovely and warm. Did I get them around the wrong way? I don't think so. I'm pretty sure that's what these are. So, yeah. Unless they are around the wrong way, but... No, I think I've double-checked all that before. Well, I'm not going to be able to do anything with it now. But that's kind of promising, because if it thinks it's got 15 PSI the whole time, it's obviously defaulted to a flat rate to save itself in case it tries over-boosting or something. Which would explain why it's down on power. In fact, the fact that it's got 170 and the graph is so smooth, that's actually pretty good, because you wouldn't expect that. Did you want to work on that engine though? Really? You might argue that that is useful timing that I've stopped using the board just before one of my own cars recorded the worst power loss figure of any car on that board. But in my defence, I have excuses ready. I think it's poorly. I don't think it's underquoted. Could be, but it looks to me like the ECU is seeing a flat boost figure, basically. It's defaulting, because obviously the boost that the turbos produce on this car is not necessarily the boost that goes into the engine, because it's all electronically controlled, and the engine will just vent off what it doesn't want, based on throttle loads and things like that, or if it thinks it's got a fault. Because if the engine can't tell, or the sensor there isn't telling the ECU how much boost is going into the engine or the ECU is not going to take any chances. It's going to be like, well, it could be like 1,000,000 PSI. So we're going to bleed most of it away. It's possible that it's a turbo fault. It's possible there's a wastegate problem, one of the turbos, but the fact I've got two turbos on this and that figure is staying rock steady, 15.225 PSI all the way through, suggests to me it's not reading it properly, which is a good thing, because it's a lot easier to do that than change the turbos, which I don't even know if I'd bother doing. It comes up with an EGR fault as well, but I think that might be a bomb code off the other one. I don't know. They do sometimes have them on these. So yeah, interesting. I think we'll return to that. The thing I was quite pleased about there is how good the graph was, considering it's an auto. The problem I'm going to have is that to put any other auto on there, I think the start speed is going to have to be something like 40, 45 mile an hour. So yeah, on a car that doesn't have a sport mode, you might not get a brilliant graph. I mean, you should get numbers, but they're not completely meaningful because you're sticking it back in neutral at high speed. A, that's not going to do the gearbox any good. Really not. And B, it's not really giving you a massively accurate number. But then if I just came off the throttle, it wouldn't give me a massively accurate number anyway. We shall return with the C6. I think I want to fix that sensor, assuming that's the fault, and get into the 200 plus club. Otherwise, it's going to end up being an S-Max.